There are moments in life when your greatest battle isn't with your purpose, your calling, or even your circumstances. It's with the people who drain, diminish, and disrupt your peace. And if you've ever found yourself questioning your worth because of how someone else treated you, then this message is for you. Because today we're not just talking about toxic people, we're talking about how you rise above them without losing yourself in the process. See, smart people understand something that many of us learn the hard way. Not every fight deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. And not every relationship deserves access to your spirit. Wisdom isn't just about what you know, it's about what you refuse to carry. And some of us have been carrying emotional baggage that was never assigned to us in the first place. You've been trying to fix people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You've been over-explaining yourself to those who have already made up their minds about you. And somewhere along the way, you started shrinking just to keep the peace. But let me tell you something. Peace that requires you to betray yourself is not peace, it's captivity. Smart people don't allow toxicity to pull them out of character. They don't argue with chaos. They don't wrestle with confusion. And they certainly don't negotiate with disrespect. Instead, they master the art of distance. Not because they don't care, but because they finally care enough about themselves to stop entertaining what's been sent to destroy them. And I know it's not easy, because sometimes toxic people aren't strangers. They're familiar. They're people you've laughed with, cried with, built with. But growth will demand that you see clearly what you once tolerated blindly. And maturity will require that you choose alignment over attachment. So if you've been feeling pulled in every direction, emotionally exhausted, mentally drained, and spiritually unsettled, maybe it's not because you're weak. Maybe it's because you've been too accessible to the wrong energy. And today that changes, because you are about to learn how to protect your peace without apology, how to set boundaries without guilt, and how to walk away without carrying the weight of someone else's dysfunction. This is how smart people deal with toxic people. And by the end of this message, you won't just understand it, you'll embody it. Protecting your peace is not a suggestion. It is a non-negotiable requirement for anyone who wants to live a life of purpose, clarity, and joy. Far too often, we underestimate the power of peace because we mistake it for passivity. We think that if we are calm, quiet, and composed, it means we are doing nothing, that we are allowing life to happen to us rather than taking charge of it. But in reality, protecting your peace is one of the most active, intentional, and disciplined acts you can engage in. It requires awareness, strategy, and a level of self-respect that not everyone is willing to cultivate. Protecting your peace is about understanding that your mind, your heart, and your spirit are sacred spaces that need care and protection. It is about recognizing that every word you speak, every thought you entertain, and every environment you allow yourself to inhabit has an impact on your mental and emotional well-being. Peace is not just a feeling, it is a state of being that influences every decision, every relationship, and every outcome in your life. If your peace is compromised, everything else is compromised: your clarity, your productivity, your emotional stability, your ability to discern, and even your spiritual connection. Many people fail to protect their peace because they allow external circumstances to dictate their internal state. They give power to every comment, every slight, every criticism, and every disruption. They allow the chaos, the drama, and the toxicity around them to infiltrate their minds, often unconsciously. And the truth is, when you do that, you give your peace away. Protecting your peace means understanding that not every battle is yours to fight. Not every opinion needs your response. Not every situation demands your energy. It means being able to discern between what requires your attention and what requires your absence. It requires the wisdom to step back, to breathe, and to refuse to participate in unnecessary conflict. Protecting your peace is also about knowing your triggers and establishing boundaries around them. It is about being intentional about who you allow in your space, who you allow to influence your mood, and who you allow to shape your worldview. Every interaction is a choice, and when you understand this, you begin to operate from a place of power rather than reaction. One of the most difficult aspects of protecting your peace is learning to detach from people who are harmful, even if they are familiar or close to you. Toxicity does not always come from strangers. It often comes from people we have invested in, people we care about, people we love. And it is in these relationships that protecting your peace becomes most challenging, because the heart wants to fix, the heart wants to explain, the heart wants to reconcile, even when the mind and the spirit know that engagement is dangerous. Protecting your peace means prioritizing your well-being over pleasing others or maintaining appearances. It means understanding that saying no is a legitimate form of self-care, that leaving a conversation, a group, or even a relationship is not betrayal, it is preservation. Protecting your peace is also about controlling your inner dialogue. Many of us are harshest with ourselves. We replay offenses, imagine slights, and carry burdens that do not belong to us. Part of guarding your peace is refusing to give power to negative thoughts, refusing to entertain fear, resentment, and anger, and refusing to allow someone else's toxicity to take root in your mind. It is choosing to focus on what nurtures, what elevates, what strengthens, and what brings clarity. Protecting your peace also requires discipline in the way you manage your time and attention. Every minute spent in harmful environments, engaging in fruitless arguments, or absorbing negativity is a minute of peace lost. Smart people understand that their energy is finite and valuable, and they allocate it carefully. They choose environments, conversations, and experiences that reinforce their sense of calm purpose and alignment. Protecting your peace means curating your life intentionally. It means choosing the people, spaces, and activities that support your emotional health and removing those that drain it. It means giving yourself permission to step away from situations that are not serving you, even when it is uncomfortable or when others question your choices. It means cultivating resilience so that even when chaos comes, it does not penetrate your sense of self. Spiritual and emotional awareness are also critical components of protecting your peace. It is the recognition that peace is not just about comfort, it is about alignment. When you are at peace, you are in alignment with your purpose, with your values, and with your inner truth. Peace allows you to think clearly, make wise decisions, and respond rather than react. It is a form of power that is often underestimated because it is quiet, but it is incredibly strong. People who protect their peace are able to navigate challenges without losing their center. They are able to face adversity, criticism, and hostility without becoming consumed by it. Protecting your peace is an act of courage because it requires confronting discomfort, asserting boundaries, and maintaining integrity in the face of opposition. It is about refusing to compromise your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being for the sake of convenience, approval, or fear of conflict. Another element of protecting your peace is the practice of self-reflection and self-awareness. You cannot guard what you do not understand. You must know your values, your limits, your non-negotiables, and the things that are most likely to disturb your inner calm. When you understand these aspects of yourself, you are able to identify threats to your peace quickly and respond proactively. Protecting your peace also involves cultivating habits that reinforce your sense of calm and stability. This may include meditation, prayer, journaling, exercise, or simply carving out time for solitude and reflection. These practices serve as a buffer against stress, negativity, and external pressures. Ultimately, protecting your peace is a lifelong commitment. It is not a one-time act or a temporary solution. It is a continuous practice of awareness, discernment, and action. It is about making choices that honor your well-being above all else, about refusing to surrender your mind and spirit to chaos, and about building a life that is sustainable, balanced, and aligned with your highest self. Those who master this skill are not only able to thrive in the midst of adversity, they become anchors of stability, clarity, and strength for others. They understand that peace is not the absence of problems. It is the ability to remain centered and composed despite them. They know that every time they protect their peace, they reinforce their power, preserve their energy, and honor their worth. Setting boundaries without guilt is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect a person can practice, yet it is also one of the hardest to fully embrace. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that boundaries are selfish or harsh, that saying no is somehow a betrayal of love, loyalty, or duty. But nothing could be further from the truth. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your energy, your time, your mental space, and your emotional well-being. They are not walls meant to shut others out. They are gates designed to regulate who and what enters your life. When you learn to set boundaries without guilt, you are making a conscious declaration that your peace, your dignity, and your purpose are not negotiable. You are taking responsibility for the way others treat you, and you are refusing to let anyone take advantage of your generosity, kindness, or patience. This is not arrogance. This is wisdom. This is strength disguised as discipline, and it is a skill that transforms how you engage with the world and how the world responds to you. The first challenge in setting boundaries without guilt is overcoming the internal voice that tells you you must always please everyone. That voice is relentless, and it is deeply ingrained. It has been shaped by family dynamics, cultural expectations, religious interpretations, and social conditioning. It whispers that saying no will make people angry, disappointed, or upset. It convinces you that accommodation and sacrifice are proof of love and virtue. But here's the truth: your yes should be a choice, not a compulsion. Every time you say yes out of fear, obligation, or guilt, you chip away at your energy, your clarity, and your ability to show up fully for what actually matters. Boundaries without guilt start with self-awareness. You must first understand your limits, your emotional bandwidth, your physical energy, your mental focus, and your spiritual priorities. You must know what you can give without depleting yourself, and what you must protect to maintain your equilibrium. Another crucial element of boundary setting is clarity and communication. Boundaries are only effective when they are clearly expressed. Silence or vague hints often lead to misunderstanding, resentment, and repeated violations. Saying no does not have to be harsh or confrontational. It can be done with grace, firm to respect. For example, you might say, "I'm not able to take that on right now," or "I need to focus on this priority, so I won't be able to participate." The language of boundaries is assertive but not aggressive, honest but not hurtful. Learning to communicate boundaries effectively allows you to protect yourself without alienating others, and it also sets a standard for how you expect to be treated. The moment you consistently honor your limits, people begin to recognize and respect them, and you no longer have to justify or defend your choices repeatedly. Guilt is often the greatest obstacle to setting boundaries. It arises when we feel responsible for others' reactions or when we fear rejection, conflict, or disappointment. Yet guilt is a false currency. It is earned only when we violate our own integrity. Setting boundaries is not about punishing someone else or shutting them out. It is about maintaining your alignment and integrity. Smart people recognize that they cannot be everything to everyone, and that trying to do so comes at the cost of their own well-being. They understand that guilt is a tool of manipulation, often used unconsciously by others to erode your confidence and distract you from your priorities. When you shade the weight of unnecessary guilt, you open up space for freedom, clarity, and focus. You can care deeply for others while still holding firm on your personal limits, and you can express compassion without compromising your energy or your sense of self. Boundaries are also deeply tied to self-worth. People who struggle with saying no often tie their value to their usefulness or availability to others. They believe that love, respect, and acceptance are contingent on their ability to constantly give. But this belief is a trap. True self-worth is inherent. It does not fluctuate based on how much you do for others. When you recognize your inherent value, you see that your time, energy, and attention are precious resources, and that protecting them is not selfish, it is necessary. Boundaries are a way of teaching others how to treat you, and by maintaining them without guilt, you create a life that prioritizes your well-being while still allowing for generosity and contribution. It is a balance between giving and receiving, between caring for others and caring for yourself, between presence and protection. One of the most transformative aspects of setting boundaries without guilt is the empowerment it brings. When you establish limits, you regain control over your life. You stop being swept along by the expectations, demands, and emotional turbulence of others. You begin to operate from a place of intention rather than reaction. Every choice becomes deliberate. Who you spend your time with, what responsibilities you accept, what conversations you engage in, and what environments you allow yourself to inhabit. Boundaries allow you to focus on what truly matters, your goals, your purpose, your growth, without being distracted by the constant pull of unnecessary obligations or draining relationships. They give you the freedom to invest in yourself and the people and projects that align with your vision. Another critical aspect is learning to navigate pushback without internalizing it. Not everyone will respect your boundaries immediately. Some may resist, argue, or try to guilt you into reverting to old patterns. This is natural. Boundary setting is an exercise in resilience. When people challenge your limits, it is not a reflection of your worth or generosity. It is a reflection of their comfort with their own habits and expectations. Standing firm in your boundaries requires confidence, patience, and consistency. Over time, your resolve strengthens, and the people who truly value you will adjust to honor the boundaries you set. This is how relationships evolve, through mutual respect rather than codependence or convenience. Setting boundaries without guilt also requires introspection and self-reflection. You must continually evaluate your needs, priorities, and limits. Life changes, responsibilities shift, and circumstances evolve, so your boundaries may need to evolve as well. Being honest with yourself about what you can handle and what you cannot is a form of courage and integrity. It is a commitment to live authentically, to engage fully without overextending, and to remain grounded even amidst demands, expectations, and pressures. It is about living with clarity and conviction, refusing to allow manipulation, fear, or social pressure to dictate your choices. Ultimately, setting boundaries without guilt is a lifelong practice. It is a continuous commitment to yourself, to your values, and to your well-being. It is not about perfection, but about progress, learning to recognize when you are overextending, acknowledging when you need space, and taking deliberate steps to protect your energy. It is about cultivating relationships that honor mutual respect and allowing go of those that consistently drain, diminish, or disrupt your peace. When done consistently, it transforms your life, your relationships, and your sense of self, empowering you to live with intention, integrity, and purpose. Stopping over-explaining yourself is one of the most liberating acts of self-mastery a person can embrace. Yet it is one of the hardest habits to break because it is so deeply ingrained in our attempts to seek validation, acceptance, or understanding from others. Many of us have grown up believing that if we articulate every thought, justify every choice, and defend every action, we can avoid conflict, criticism, or judgment. We assume that the more we explain ourselves, the more others will understand our intentions and the less likely they are to misinterpret us. But over-explaining is a trap. It communicates uncertainty, it diminishes your authority, and it often empowers others to question your decisions further rather than honoring them. The truth is that the need to over-explain stems from fear, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of disappointing, and the fear of being rejected. Smart people recognize that clarity does not require justification, and that self-respect is maintained through confidence, not through constant defense. The first step in stopping over-explaining yourself is recognizing why you do it. Over-explaining often comes from a desire to be accepted, to be liked, or to avoid confrontation. It is rooted in people-pleasing tendencies and in a belief that your value is contingent upon how well you can justify your actions. When you understand the source of this behavior, you can begin to disrupt it. It requires awareness and mindfulness because over-explaining can become so habitual that it happens unconsciously, spilling out in conversations, emails, meetings, or social interactions before you even realize it. Once you identify when and why you are over-explaining, you can start to respond differently, to pause, to assess, and to ask whether the explanation is truly necessary. This pause is powerful because it shifts you from reaction to intention, from insecurity to authority, and from anxiety to confidence. Another important aspect is understanding the difference between communication and justification. Explaining yourself is natural and necessary when clarity is required, but justification implies that you are defending your choices to avoid disapproval. When you explain without justifying, you provide information in a neutral and confident way, without seeking validation or approval. This approach changes the dynamic of the interaction entirely. Instead of giving power to others to question your motives, you maintain ownership of your decisions. You set the tone that your choices are yours, and while others may have opinions, they are not entitled to control your reasoning or dictate your actions. This subtle shift requires discipline, but it is a transformative skill that enhances your credibility, confidence, and emotional freedom. One of the key challenges in breaking the habit of over-explaining is confronting the discomfort of silence. When we stop over-explaining, we may feel as though we are leaving gaps that others will fill with judgment, misinterpretation, or criticism. The natural human tendency is to fill those gaps with words, rationalizations, and defenses. But silence can be an incredibly powerful tool. When you allow a statement or a decision to stand on its own without embellishment or justification, it communicates strength, confidence, and clarity. People often respect firmness more than verbosity, and they are more likely to accept decisions that are stated plainly and decisively. Over-explaining often diminishes authority because it communicates doubt, but concise communication reinforces it. The more comfortable you become with brevity and restraint, the more you convey mastery over your choices and composure under scrutiny. Another element is building self-trust. Over-explaining is often a reflection of internal doubt. When you constantly feel the need to justify yourself, you are signaling that you do not fully trust your own judgment or decision-making. Stopping this behavior requires developing confidence in your choices and reinforcing the belief that you are capable, competent, and worthy of respect without needing to convince others repeatedly. Self-trust is cultivated through reflection, self-awareness, and consistent practice. It grows as you make decisions, take ownership of them, and experience that you can navigate outcomes without being controlled by external validation. When you trust yourself, you no longer feel compelled to explain every nuance to everyone around you, because your sense of authority and clarity comes from within, not from approval from others. Understanding the value of energy is also central to this practice. Over-explaining consumes time, focus, and mental bandwidth. It invites unnecessary scrutiny, prolongs conflict, and often fuels further questioning or debate. By stopping over explanation, you conserve your energy for things that truly matter: your goals, relationships that respect your autonomy, and pursuits that align with your purpose. Every unnecessary justification is a diversion, a depletion of your resources, and a weakening of your position. Smart people recognize that their time and energy are finite and precious, and they allocate them strategically. Choosing to stop over explaining is a declaration that your energy belongs to you and that you will not squander it to appease the insecurities or expectations of others. Emotional intelligence plays a critical role as well. When you resist over-explaining, you develop a deeper understanding of the emotional dynamics at play in conversations and relationships. You learn to discern when someone's reaction requires your engagement and when it is a projection of their own biases, fears, or insecurities. Over-explaining is often triggered by external pressures, someone's insistence, judgment, or manipulation. By cultivating emotional intelligence, you become able to step back, observe without reacting, and respond only when necessary. This skill allows you to maintain composure, protect your mental space, and preserve your sense of peace, even in situations where others are seeking conflict or validation at your expense. Boundaries intersect powerfully with this practice. When you stop over explaining yourself, you are establishing a boundary around your personal narrative. You are signaling that your reasoning, choices, and priorities are yours alone, and that while you may share them, they are not open for endless debate or scrutiny. This boundary creates respect, both from others and from yourself. People begin to understand that your words have weight, your decisions have authority, and your life is not a forum for constant justification. The more consistently you enforce this boundary, the stronger your presence becomes, and the more you inspire respect, clarity, and trust in those around you. Another aspect of stopping over explaining is the cultivation of mindfulness and self-awareness in your communication. You must learn to listen carefully, think before speaking, and assess whether a response or clarification is necessary. Mindful communication prevents impulsive explanations and allows you to respond strategically, thoughtfully, and intentionally. This is not about being cold or distant. It is about being measured, discerning, and confident. It is about choosing words that convey clarity without inviting debate or misunderstanding. And it is about understanding that your voice is powerful enough to stand alone without constant justification. Ultimately, stopping over, explaining yourself is about reclaiming authority, protecting energy, and cultivating confidence. It is a process that requires patience, self-reflection, and practice. It demands that you confront fear, release the need for external approval, and trust your inner judgment. It transforms the way you engage with others, the way you perceive yourself, and the way your life unfolds. By resisting the urge to over-explain, you create space for authenticity, clarity, and empowerment. You allow your words, actions, and choices to speak for themselves, and you model a level of self-respect that inspires those around you. Detaching emotionally from toxic behavior is one of the most profound acts of self-preservation a person can practice. Yet it is also one of the hardest to achieve because human nature often tempts us to respond with emotion, attachment, or reaction. Toxic behavior comes in many forms: manipulation, criticism, negativity, jealousy, control, or outright hostility. But one thing is consistent: engaging emotionally with it drains your energy, distorts your clarity, and disrupts your peace. When you detach emotionally, you create a space between the toxicity and your sense of self. You recognize that the other person's behavior is a reflection of their own struggles, limitations, and choices, and that it does not define your worth, your identity, or your reality. Emotional detachment is not indifference or coldness. It is the conscious decision to protect your inner world, maintain composure, and operate from clarity rather than chaos. The first step in detaching emotionally is developing awareness of the patterns and behaviors that trigger you. Toxic people often act in ways that provoke strong emotional reactions because they seek control, attention, or validation. They may provoke guilt, shame, anger, or fear intentionally or unconsciously. When you recognize these patterns, you can respond with intentionality rather than reaction. Emotional detachment begins with observation, seeing the behavior for what it is without internalizing it. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" you ask, What does this behavior reveal about them? This shift in perspective removes the personal charge from the situation and allows you to maintain clarity and composure. Another essential aspect of detaching emotionally is understanding boundaries. Emotional detachment is impossible without clear limits on how much influence others have over your mind, your feelings, and your decisions. Boundaries help define what is acceptable and what is not in your interactions with others. They allow you to step back, protect your energy, and choose when and how to engage. Without boundaries, toxic behavior seeps into your life, creating confusion, resentment, and burnout. By establishing boundaries, you create a protective buffer that allows you to interact without being consumed by negativity or drama. Boundaries are not a punishment for the other person. They are an act of self-care and self-respect. Detaching emotionally also requires discipline in how you process your thoughts and feelings. Many people carry the impact of toxic behavior internally, replaying events, analyzing conversations, and imagining worst-case scenarios. This mental rehearsal strengthens the emotional hold the toxicity has over you. Smart people learn to manage their internal dialogue, refusing to give repeated attention to harmful interactions. They journal, meditate, pray, or engage in other reflective practices to process emotions in a controlled and constructive way. Emotional detachment is not about suppressing feelings. It is about managing them so that they do not control your responses, dictate your mood, or compromise your peace. Self-awareness and self-trust are critical components in this practice. Detachment is not easy if you doubt your ability to handle conflict, if you question your judgment, or if you feel responsible for managing other people's emotions. Emotional detachment requires confidence in your own decisions, resilience in the face of negativity, and the courage to remain centered even when others are attempting to provoke or destabilize you. It involves trusting that your worth, your perspective, and your life trajectory are not determined by external toxicity, and that your stability comes from within. This internal foundation allows you to navigate challenging relationships without losing yourself or compromising your peace. Another element is recognizing that emotional responses are often fuel for toxicity. Toxic people thrive on the energy they provoke in others. When you detach emotionally, you deny them this fuel. You no longer provide the dramatic reactions, guilt, or anger that feed their behavior. Detachment is a form of empowerment. It allows you to maintain authority over your own emotions while neutralizing the power of toxic behavior. It is the difference between being a participant in chaos and being an observer who chooses when and how to engage. This perspective requires practice, but it is transformative in creating freedom from emotional manipulation and unnecessary suffering. Detachment also involves redefining your expectations of others. Toxic behavior often triggers disappointment because we expect people to act in alignment with our values, ethics, or sense of fairness. When reality does not meet these expectations, we respond with frustration, hurt, or anger. Emotional detachment requires adjusting expectations to reality, understanding that not everyone will behave in ways that reflect integrity, kindness, or respect. By detaching, you accept that other people's actions are a reflection of them, not a reflection of you. You stop carrying responsibility for their behavior, and you free yourself from the burden of trying to control or change them. Mindfulness plays a crucial role in emotional detachment. Being present in the moment allows you to respond rather than react. Toxic encounters often trigger automatic emotional responses, but mindfulness creates space between stimulus and response. This space is where detachment lives. It allows you to observe the situation without internalizing it, to assess your response consciously, and to choose actions that align with your values and protect your peace. Practicing mindfulness strengthens emotional resilience and provides clarity in navigating difficult interactions, helping you avoid the trap of impulsive reactions that prolong suffering or conflict. Detaching emotionally also intersects with the practice of forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior or allowing continued abuse. It means releasing the emotional charge that binds you to the negativity. Holding on to resentment, anger, or the need for revenge keeps you entangled in toxicity and perpetuates emotional suffering. Emotional detachment involves releasing these feelings, not for the sake of the other person, but for your own freedom. By forgiving, you remove the hold that the behavior has over your inner peace and create space for healing, clarity, and growth. Another aspect is embracing self-care as a non-negotiable priority. Emotional detachment is supported by routines, habits, and practices that reinforce stability, resilience, and well-being. Sleep, exercise, healthy nutrition, spiritual practices, meditation, and meaningful social connections all strengthen your capacity to remain centered when facing toxic behavior. Detachment is easier to maintain when your energy is high, your mind is clear, and your spirit is nourished. Neglecting self, care diminishes your capacity to disengage emotionally and increases vulnerability to manipulation, frustration, and negativity. Ultimately, detaching emotionally from toxic behavior is an ongoing practice, not a one-time decision. It requires vigilance, reflection, and continual adjustment as relationships, circumstances, and challenges evolve. It is about cultivating the ability to respond rather than react, to observe rather than internalize, and to maintain composure in the face of hostility or negativity. Emotional detachment allows you to preserve your peace, protect your energy, and operate from a place of clarity, strength, and authority. It empowers you to engage with the world without being consumed by it, to participate without being manipulated, and to live in alignment with your purpose rather than being dictated by the chaos or toxicity of others. Choosing growth over familiarity is one of the most courageous and transformative decisions a person can make, yet it is also one of the hardest because human nature gravitates toward comfort, routine. And the familiarity feels safe, predictable, and manageable even when it is limiting, draining, or toxic. Growth, on the other hand, requires risk, discomfort, and uncertainty. It demands that you leave behind patterns, relationships, and environments that no longer serve your highest potential. Smart people understand that choosing growth over familiarity is not about abandoning responsibility, love, or commitment. It is about honoring your purpose, your values, and your well-being. It is about refusing to let the gravitational pull of comfort keep you stagnant when opportunity, transformation, and destiny are calling. The first step in choosing growth over familiarity is recognizing the difference between comfort and true alignment. Familiarity can masquerade as stability, but often it is a form of stagnation disguised as safety. It is the life you know, the relationships you can predict, and the routines you can manage without strain. Growth, in contrast, often feels uncomfortable, challenging, and unfamiliar. It requires stretching beyond your limits, confronting your fears, and stepping into situations where outcomes are not guaranteed. Growth demands that you be vulnerable, that you take risks, and that you invest in possibilities rather than certainties. Those who cling to familiarity often do so out of fear, not wisdom, and in doing so, they miss opportunities to evolve, expand, and reach their highest potential. Another critical aspect of choosing growth over familiarity is the willingness to evaluate relationships and environments honestly. People and places that were once supportive may no longer contribute to your development. Some relationships may keep you rooted in old patterns, encourage mediocrity, or drain your energy. Familiarity can become a trap when it prevents you from pursuing what aligns with your purpose. Growth requires discernment, the ability to assess whether a person, a situation, or a pattern is helping you ascend or keeping you tethered to the past. It requires courage to disengage from comfort zones that no longer serve you and to pursue opportunities, relationships, and environments that stretch, challenge, and inspire you. Self-awareness is essential in this process. Choosing growth over familiarity requires that you know yourself deeply, your values, your purpose, your strengths, and your non-negotiables. Without self-awareness, it is easy to mistake fear for prudence or stagnation for stability. Growth demands honest reflection, willingness to confront weaknesses, and readiness to step into accountability. It involves assessing where you have been, recognizing the patterns that have held you back, and choosing to act differently moving forward. Familiarity offers predictability, but it rarely propels you toward transformation. Growth challenges you to evolve beyond comfort, to embrace discomfort as a teacher, and to lean into experiences that expand your capacity, perspective, and resilience. Fear is one of the primary barriers to choosing growth over familiarity. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of uncertainty, and fear of loss can keep us anchored in the familiar even when it is harmful or limiting. Smart people recognize fear for what it is, a signal that you are at the edge of transformation. Detaching from familiarity requires courage, and courage requires action despite fear. Choosing growth means taking steps into the unknown, embracing challenges that stretch your skills and mindset, and trusting that your capacity to adapt, learn, and thrive is greater than the comfort you are leaving behind. Every step toward growth reinforces your resilience, strengthens your confidence, and expands your sense of possibility. Another element of choosing growth is reframing your relationship with discomfort. Familiarity feels safe because it is predictable, but growth often comes wrapped in uncertainty, challenge, and tension. Smart people learn to see discomfort as a signal that transformation is occurring. Discomfort is a companion on the path to expansion. It is the sign that you are stretching beyond old limitations and moving toward your next level. Growth requires the ability to embrace uncertainty with curiosity, to persist in the face of resistance, and to remain committed to your purpose even when the familiar calls you back to ease and predictability. The willingness to tolerate discomfort without retreating is what separates those who remain stuck from those who evolve into their full potential. Decision-making plays a critical role in prioritizing growth over familiarity. Every choice you make, who you spend time with, what projects you pursue, what habits you cultivate, and what opportunities you accept or decline contributes to your trajectory. Familiarity tempts you to repeat old patterns, maintain the status quo, and avoid risk. Growth requires conscious decisions that prioritize long-term alignment over short-term comfort. It requires the discipline to weigh options, consider outcomes, and act in ways that honor your purpose, even if the path is unfamiliar or challenging. By consistently choosing what nurtures your evolution, you gradually reshape your life to reflect your highest aspirations rather than past conditioning or societal expectation. Resilience is another cornerstone of this practice. Choosing growth over familiarity inevitably involves setbacks, mistakes, and resistance. The unfamiliar is often uncomfortable and unpredictable, and those who venture into it must develop the capacity to recover, adapt, and persist. Resilience allows you to maintain focus on your purpose despite challenges, to learn from difficulties rather than be defeated by them, and to keep moving forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Smart people understand that growth is not linear. It is a journey of trials, lessons, and incremental progress. The willingness to persevere through discomfort and uncertainty distinguishes those who evolve from those who remain tethered to the familiar. Emotional intelligence is also crucial in choosing growth over familiarity. Growth requires the ability to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics, manage your responses, and maintain clarity under pressure. Familiarity often allows you to remain passive or reactive, but growth demands intentional engagement with challenges, constructive communication, and discernment in relationships. Emotional intelligence strengthens your ability to step away from situations that no longer serve you while engaging in a way that is aligned with your values and purpose. It provides the insight to recognize when familiarity is holding you back and the courage to pursue opportunities that stretch your capacity and expand your influence. Finally, choosing growth over familiarity is a declaration of self-respect and self-prioritization. It is a conscious choice to invest in yourself, to pursue your purpose, and to embrace your potential without apology. It requires courage, awareness, discipline, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. Familiarity may feel comfortable, but growth offers freedom, expansion, and alignment with your highest self. Those who choose growth understand that life's greatest rewards lie beyond the familiar, and that the journey toward transformation demands that they leave behind patterns, environments, and relationships that no longer serve their evolution. This choice reshapes your life, influences your relationships, and empowers you to create a reality that reflects your vision, your values, and your limitless potential.